Brodes Media.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on in to Sports Talk with Brodes. It's nice to be back in the studio here. It's been a few days over at the radio station. I hope you guys have been enjoying the content that I've been uploading here on Brodes Media from WIP. But yes, we are back in the studio here, and unfortunately, we got to turn the page, fellas, ladies and gentlemen. We can't marinate and bask in the championship as long as we would like, because you're behind the eight ball. Other teams are going through their hiring process. Other squads are putting together their staffs. You lost Kellen Moore. Looks like he's taken a few guys with him, which is the nature of the beast. If you were going to be the gold standard in the NFL, which there's no doubt about it, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman has created a culture where teams want to look in their direction to add to their respected staffs. People want to take from Howie Roseman's front office. That's just what happens when you show signs of real, legitimate success and being a juggernaut and being a force and being a top dog in the NFC. So if that's what you are going to be, then you have to be able to handle this. All right, Doug Nussmeier. No longer your quarterback's coach. He gets poached. He becomes an OC in New Orleans. What are you going to do about it? You also lost TJ Paganetti, who was the run game specialist and assistant offensive line coach. What are you going to do about it? And there's so many layers to this. From who has more say in the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach, whoever comes in. Jalen? Nick? Howie? I think we know who has more say. It's going to be Howie. But how much of a voice does Nick have? And what if Jalen thinks that Nick's choice isn't what he prefers? But what if Nick's choice is Nick's right-hand man, Kevin Patullo? I don't know. Who had final say or more say in Brian Johnson? Was it Jalen? Because of the relationship with Brian Johnson? And because that failed, does that mean Jalen, sorry, you got input last time. It was ugly. It was rough. I can't trust it anymore. And then what if Jalen goes, yo, but dude, I'm a Super Bowl champion. I'm a Super Bowl MVP. Don't you think I deserve respect? And then Nick goes, yeah. Don't you think I do too? And then Howie goes, yeah, but I chose Kellen Moore. I put Vic Fangio in place. You guys focus on what you do. All due respect, I love you. It wouldn't come out in a nasty way. This kind of makes it feel like it is, but that's not my point. It would be a very, not difficult conversation, but a real conversation, an authentic conversation, a passionate conversation, an emotional conversation. Nick, you stay doing what you do well, because you do something that is magnificent. You do something that's amazing. You are an incredible leader. Let's keep that where it was, because it shows when that shines, we are a phenomenal football team. Yo, Jalen, I know it sucks that you have another new offensive coordinator. You got more language you're going to have to deal with in the offseason, a different playbook. You're going to have added layers to this puppy. But you're great, dude. You're a Super Bowl MVP. You just shut up the entire world who doubted you. You're going to be dominant, no matter who I select to be your QB coach. Trust me, I got this. I brought in Kellen. Look how that transpired. And this is following a pretty rough 2023. So bear with me. But I promise I got you guys. You know what I mean? I don't know how this is going to go. It's truly fascinating. I can't tell you one way or another about if Kevin Patullo is going to be good or bad. I don't know. Quite frankly, I thought Kellen Moore was an okay hire. He's now a Super Bowl champion and a head coach. He got canned in Dallas for a reason. And then when the Chargers decided to go with a whole new look and a whole new staff, he was gone there too. But he wasn't lighting the world on fire with Justin Herbert and in L.A., right? It got so bad where they decided they needed a whole new facelift and they needed to change a ton about their identity. So I thought it was just a solid hire with a guy who is established, who has called plays in an organization that applies pressure, Dallas. It's a big deal to be an offensive coordinator in that town. You know what it means when the fan base is breathing down your neck and you have to provide success. You have to win games. I think there's so much that you take out of that experience if you're a play caller in a city like that. And knowing that you're going from Brian Johnson to at least a professional because of the current state of where the Eagles were, I thought it was important to have a voice like Kellen Moore, but it wasn't blowing my socks off. Yet you win a championship. So the reason I bring that up is if it's Kevin Patullo, it doesn't blow my socks off. I don't love it. And I'm scarred because of how the Brian Johnson experience went. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a disaster. It may end up being good. It may end up being strong. It may end up being good for Jalen because maybe it's very similar concepts, similar beliefs. Unless Nick gets more say in that part. Or maybe he's had more say this whole time than we initially believe. And we're all off base. I don't know. There's a lot of confusion there. I'll say this, though. I feel very confident about their quarterback and head coach and general manager. I think they have great relationships. But it's going to be tested now. Because your ego grows when you get that title. Doug Peterson after the Super Bowl, big difference from Doug Peterson before the Super Bowl. That's just what happens. More entitlement. More belief in yourself. You demand more. You look at your resume and you go, hold on a second. You're not going to allow me to do X, Y, and Z? I'm a Super Bowl champion. We did this already. With Mike Rowe, with Press Taylor. Now, I don't know if it's going to go exactly the same way because Doug Peterson said, fire me then. Fire me. You don't like it? Fire me. And then he walked out of that house with Jeffrey Lurie in Florida, and he probably had the best sigh of relief in the world. That's not the current state of this franchise right now. You know, at the time that all went down and that happened, it was definitely more hostile. But I'm fascinated to see how these conversations go, what type of offensive coordinators actually get interviewed, and how Jalen feels about all this. And I don't know if we'll ever know. Because obviously they're going to give us player speak, give us coach speak, give us GM speak. But listen to Jalen Hurts in the locker room during locker cleanout day, right after they won the Super Bowl. He was asked about Kevin Patullo specifically because it seems like he's the front horse here. It seems like he's the one in first place, and it's almost his job to lose to some degree. Here's Jalen Hurts on the idea of our pass game coordinator and associate head coach being the favorite for the offensive coordinator job.
Yeah. Kevin Patullo's never been he'd have a different role. So it's hard to compare, that role to this role because his job is going to demand something totally different of him. And I have a lot of confidence in him and what he's shown. However, I know, over the years I've learned that's out of my jurisdiction. And so kind of just taking things as they come and trying to go out there and be the best I can be and just learn and evolve.
Now, when I hear that, It seemed like he started off saying certain things and then he realized real quick how bad it was sounding. And then he goes, well, it's really out of my control. But when your first initial reaction from the quarterback is he's never called plays before, I think that's almost a dose of reality that, yeah, I don't know if he's my favorite. I don't know if that's the path I'd go. I don't know if that's the one that I would say is automatically at the top of my list. And it's a no-brainer lock that we're looking at Nick Sirianni's right-hand man. Knowing Nick and Jalen have had, I'm not going to say beef, but there has been some tricky obstacles to jump over throughout their time here, and that's the God-honest truth, all right? That wasn't made up. There were times where it was a bit tough, and to their credit, they definitely did a phenomenal job of getting back on track, but if Jalen feels a certain type of way about Nick's right-hand man, knowing that Nick felt a certain type of way potentially about Jalen's right-hand man and Brian Johnson, I'm not here to try and, make this thing ugly and rough and you're coming off of a Super Bowl and now all of a sudden it's doom and gloom because there's an opening with your staff. But these are real issues. These are things that happen behind the scenes. Now, I do trust the three men in place. I do trust the big three that we're talking about here. And if you want to add Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, probably the biggest and most important, fine. I do trust the four people that are in the hierarchy here to professionally get through this, especially coming off of a bowl, knowing that the objective is we are not going to take a step back. We will push forward and we will be a Super Bowl contender again. What happened in 17 was fantastic. What happened in 18 was the bar was set super high and then it never really played out into fruition here. It ended up being dog shit. Can't happen. Now, this team, roster-wise and structure-wise, I think is in a completely better spot than 2018 was. There's a lot of egos and a lot of personalities, though, that are going to want to have an input on what happens with these big jobs in the organization. I believe in them to get through this. I believe in them to have the proper dialogue and the proper conversations behind closed doors. But it's not easy. That's all. That's my point. Look, I'm still in Super Bowl high mode. I'm still enjoying every second of being Super Bowl 59 champs. So it does feel strange to me to sort of bring this up. But I'd be doing a disservice if I just pretended that this is automatically going to be perfect. No doubt about it. 1,000%. Yup, this is great. They're going to knock it out of the park. Yup. I don't know that. I do know that people change after you have success. Opinions change, entitlement grows, and this is as big of a hire as you can imagine. Look at the difference on what this team was capable of doing when they actually got stable coordinators here. And this is as sexy of an opening as you'd find. Think about it. Not only do you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, this offensive line, Saquon Barkley, and the rest of the crew. You get to call plays and have a great chance of being hired as a head coach. If there's somebody out there that's not a part of the Eagles organization that has some sex appeal, all right, that is a very intriguing name. Maybe they got canned in a different area or a different team before, but there were a lot of injuries, and that was a big part of the problem. And, hey, come on down. A lot of these times, if you're going to a great franchise like Kansas City and you're behind Andy Reid, you get stuck because, well, they're not really the one that's driving the train, all right? What is it, the caboose? Isn't that the end of the train? The conductor? Whatever. You get my point. You're just along for the ride. But here, with this personnel, with this talent, you're the man. Kellen Moore just got hired. I think Kellen Moore is a good guy. And he's probably not going to succeed more because of the nature of where the New Orleans Saints are with their cap space, with their quarterback, with a lot of other things outside of Kellen Moore. But if my team hired Kellen Moore, if my team hired Jonathan Gannon, I'd say, Jesus Christ. But that's the power of the Eagles logo. That's the power of the Eagles crest. And everybody around the NFL knows that. So I'm just trying to put an emphasis on how sexy of a job opportunity this is, how much of a big deal this opening is, outside of what does this mean for Eagles football. When you're an outsider looking in, it's one of the best jobs on the market. So you got to do your due diligence and make sure you go through the proper interviewing process to see how you can perfectly nail the next OC. And I can't have it just be Kevin Patullo because he would be angry if it wasn't him. Because maybe he had chances elsewhere and decided, I'm going to stick by my guy, Nick Sirianni, because I know when there's an opening, it's my shot. I can't just hand it off to him just because. But look, there's also a world where they all agree, okay? So I don't want to make it seem like there's only one option here, and it's a bunch of controversy, it's a bunch of in-house fighting, and it's three guys that can't get on the same page, and then they're all in disarray when training camp starts, right? Because that's not the only option here. I'll paint you a new picture. Here it is. They all love Kevin Patullo, and they all think he's great. And they all think he could be the reason why this offense takes another step, at least in the passing game, in the regular season. Because, well, there were problems, right? First quarter scoring. How many times do we want to take our heads, bash it against the wall for 73 minutes before you realize, holy hell, oh, they got a point now? Good, good, good. I'm glad. It took 2 quarters. It took 3 quarters. They went 3 and out every possession in the first quarter. But, hey, we got it now. Hey, how about they all feel that maybe it could be a fix with Kevin Patullo, and that's not a problem. Maybe they could be top 10 in passing instead of in the bottom of the league in the passing game throughout the regular season. Maybe they all agree. Maybe they think, yeah, we don't have to rush because we know we have our guy. Hey, maybe it's that simple. And then we're good. Then we're just in cruise control. Getting ready for the draft, getting ready for some combine stuff, seeing what they're going to do with some of their free agents. I'm just saying, it's not a definite nightmare, but they got to get this thing right. And as much as I trust Howie, you never know. Bryce Huff was a swing and a miss. Now I'll give you 9 examples of great moves. But someone signed off on Brian Johnson. I'd imagine Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman were cool with it at the time prior. Now, maybe they don't fall for the same mistake. Maybe they don't make the same error. Or they don't compare Brian Johnson to who Kevin Patullo is. And there's no real correlation, which I actually kind of lean that way. As much as I would prefer getting a Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio experience, play caller, that type of mold, I can't tell you that Kevin Patullo is going to stink because Brian Johnson stinks, even if he's not necessarily my first option. At least I would like to know who they are capable of interviewing before seeing Kevin Patullo get the 2 thumbs up and sign on the dotted lines. You know, if I see 5 or 6 guys are meeting with Howie, meeting with Lurie, and then after those names are revealed, I go, you know what? Nothing wows me there either. So if they happen to hear them out and see what they can provide and listen to their story, listen to their game plans, listen to how they would operate this offense, and they're not really wowed, and they decide, yo, the guy that was already here, the guy that has worked with Nick, the guy that has a close relationship with Nick, the guy that already knows Jalen Hurts may be the best move for us, then fine. Then fine. I don't have a problem with that. So I'm in this weird spot. Here's where it is before we get to the phones here. I'm worried about the friction because everyone needs to be on the same page, and hearing Jalen, I could see a world where Nick talks to Howie about Patullo. Howie's okay with Patullo, but doesn't necessarily love it and isn't his number one guy. But then Nick says, yo, you're about to give me an extension. I just won you a Super Bowl. I feel I deserve a little bit of an opportunity here to at least express some interest in my coaching staff. And then they say, all right, fine. If he's 2 or 3 on my list and not number 1, it's not as if he's number 8 on my list. So let's move forward with it. But Jalen doesn't like it. And that's a real concern of mine. It's a real concern of mine. And I feel guilty laying this out there for you after we just talked about how great of a team this is and Jalen Hurts. But you kind of closed that book already. You did. You closed that chapter. It's all over with. It's done. This is a new year now. And this is my first concern and my first question mark as we start to embark on this journey. All right. Before we get to your phone calls, you know about my friends over at Garage Beer. It's the best beer on planet Earth. DrinkGarageBeer.com, 0% IPA, 100% light beer, 1,000% quality. DrinkGarageBeer.com. All right, let's go to the phones and take calls from the great people.
Hey, Brodes, long-time listener, first-time caller, Evan here. I just wanted to talk about how Jalen Hurts was literally second running for MVP 2 years ago. And sure, he threw a couple less passes over the past 2 years. I'll give him that. But I don't get where the could he do it question came from. It just never really clicked in my head. That dude is handsome as hell. I've never seen him lose a game where he's supposed to, besides against the Buccaneers in the playoffs. We don't talk about that. But he is the only man that I would let my girlfriend cheat on me with, and that's on everything.
I did not expect to hear that. Oh, man. I don't even know what to say. What was your actual sports point? Oh, where the narrative came that he can't beat you and he can't throw. I don't know. I don't know either. I mean, listen. I think it's because there are Josh Allens out there, okay? There's Aaron Rodgers out there. But this is what cracks me up, all right? Aaron Rodgers is arguably the best passer, the best thrower of the football. And if he's not one, he is one of the literal greatest men on planet Earth to release a football from his hand, okay? The best, the top to ever do it. He's got 1 Super Bowl. He's got 1 Lombardi trophy. So when people get enamored with how Jalen throw or how others throw it and how Jalen can't live up to that, you're overdoing it. You're over talking about the way Josh Allen does it. I mean, Josh Allen has had how many chances to beat Pat Mahomes in the playoffs, in the AFC playoffs? I mean, you're talking about before the big dance. You're talking about prior to the big dance. You can't even beat them in a game before the biggest game on planet Earth. Yet Jalen can. Yet Jalen can ball out against Spags. Yet Jalen can figure out Spags. He can do it in the air. He can definitely do it with his legs. See, I don't care how he does it. You know, the narrative of can Jalen do it? Well, he can do it on the ground for 70 yards twice in the Super Bowl, and he can put it in the air too. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the best thrower ever has 1 Super Bowl. You know, to make it seem like you have to be the best thrower ever and that's the only way you can ever win a Super Bowl. No. I say this all the time. Jalen Hurts is more than competent as an NFL passer. More than competent. And that's not even giving him enough credit. But this narrative that he can't throw X, Y, and Z, it's a joke. I even remember hearing Tom Brady. He was all foaming out the mouth in excitement and having an orgasm as a quarterback when he was watching one of the throws that Jalen made, a couple step drop, and then he planted his back foot. He made a throw to the sideline, and he goes, that's the type of throw that you study when you're a coach, when you're watching guys come into the draft. That's the throw that you got to see if they can make. And if they can make that throw, they could be a real legit NFL quarterback. That's Tom Brady, one of the other best quarterbacks to ever do it, and he's watching Jalen Hurts do it. This one wasn't in the Super Bowl. It was throughout the NFL season, but I don't give a damn when it is. The fact that he's got that in his bag, yet Joe from South Philly tries to tell me Jalen Hurts can't do this. I mean, come on, man. Guy's a Super Bowl MVP. Guy threw a bomb to Devontae to go up 34-0, take the kill shot. Those throws to Jahan Dotson, no joke. So I don't know where it came from. It's because there are better throwers. I think that's what it comes down to. There are better throwers. I don't give a fuck. The best thrower ever has won. Don't care. I just care that your style leads to success. I don't care what your style is, as long as your style works. His style works. I don't care what it looks like. It works. It's effective. It's unstoppable. And his mindset is killer as well.
I know the Jalen Hurts Appreciation Day was yesterday, but I'm just going to ramble about Jalen Hurts for a minute or two. Let's start with his college career. This dude was 19-2 at Alabama, and in the national championship game, it's bench for Tua. Tua ends up taking his starting job the very next year after he leads them to a national championship. And Jalen sits as the backup the whole year for Tua, comes in the SEC championship after Tua gets injured against the same Georgia team that he got benched against last year and wins the SEC championship. Then he goes to Oklahoma, has a 10-1 record, goes into the playoffs, falls a little short, goes to the Eagles. A lot of people hated the pick, I myself included. You know what I mean? Like, it is so crazy how far this dude has come. Everybody hated the pick originally, and he was the backup to Carson Wentz. Everybody believed in Carson Wentz, and then Carson Wentz fell off the cliff. Everybody was calling Jalen Hurts' name. Hey, kid, it's your time now. And we had no idea what to really expect, and he showed out for the offense in year one. You know what I mean? Like, he brought a spark that Carson Wentz did not have. And then we go into year two, we're like, all right, we got new head coach, we got a whole new system, it's probably not going to be the best year. And what happens? We go to the wild card in year one. In year one. Obviously, it was a rough start, but like, we went to the wild card. We had so much to look forward to. Then we go to the Super Bowl, and he falls just short because of a fucking James Bradbury holding call. And then after that, he has the year that he has last year where we fall up short. A lot of people are questioning him because he gets the huge contract, and people are like, is this guy really our franchise quarterback? And he comes in this year with Saquon Barkley, just has absolutely the best season of his entire career. I think it was better than his MVP season. I know that his MVP season really put him on the map, but if you go back and look at the way that he played this year, he was not playing bad at all. I was defending him through every thick and thin, and I am just so glad that he proved everybody wrong. He went into the playoffs and did what he did 2 years ago. He lit it up, and I'm just so proud for my quarterback, man. Every single time he's proven people wrong.
That I agree with. Now, to be fair, listen, I'm a big Jalen guy. There were some issues with the passing game, and throughout the regular season, it was a journey. But when it was money time, when it was time to deliver, and once they sort of made that shift happen a few games after the bye week, I'm with you. I'm with you. There were still too many doubters later on that I wasn't happy with. But there were times this year where there were reasons to wonder, what's going on here, right? This isn't a Jalen thing. If my quarterback turns the ball over as much as Jalen was early on, I'd be yelling. I'd be screaming, no matter who it is. If it's Bill Smith, if it's John Jones, if it's whatever, it doesn't matter. Jimmy Smith, if you're turning the ball over as much as he was early on, then by all means, let's let's talk about how that's not sustainable and you can't win that way. But I'm with you. Towards the end, and even now, today, there's way too many haters. I love Jalen. But yeah, I mean, listen, when it comes to the draft thing, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman made it very clear that they missed out on Russell Wilson, and they were not going to allow for that to happen a second time. So this is what they visualized. And while it was a weird-ass timing for it because of when they gave Carson the contract, the fact that they acted on their feel, and they said, I don't care what we did prior, meaning giving out Carson Wentz or giving him money. I don't care that we just did that. I'm not making that same mistake that I made with Russell Wilson. Jalen Hurts is a force. I believe in that. We're taking him. It is what it is. We are taking him. We are not letting this slip from our hands again. Credit to them. And, you bring up all the college stuff. Here's something that I didn't think about until earlier today. I went over to my mother's house. I brought over my daughter so they could hang out for a little bit. And I caught some of the midday show. And Hugh Douglas was listening to the audio clip, Hugh and Joe Giglio, of Jalen Hurts talking to the team in the locker room on the unscripted. And, one of the big things that stood out to me was he's still not over Super Bowl 57. And that's part of the drive that quarterback one has that I appreciate so much. But he made a little joke about not being benched. And Hugh brought up, that shows it goes deeper. Not only is he still thinking about Super Bowl 57 and that's gasoline being added to the fire, this guy still thinks about getting benched. That's still eating him alive. That's still, that's fueling him. He's making comments prior to the Super Bowl about being benched. You don't bring that stuff up, if it's out of your mind by now. You've done so much. You've accomplished so much. You've been in a Super Bowl. You've been established as a starter. You got paid a good chunk of change. You're the face of the Philadelphia Eagles. You're about to embrace another Super Bowl run. He brings up being benched. He brings up how Super Bowl 57 changed his life forever. So did getting benched then. And that went right over my head. I didn't even process that. But it speaks to the way that man admires the game, respects the game, absorbs the game, and applies everything he has to this game. And he soaks it all, everything. And he lets it marinate. And whatever drives him throughout that. But he's wired differently, man. I said this on the radio the other day. You say Mamba mentality, right? You say Jordan mentality. There's going to be a time where these young cats who are younger athletes now say that's the Jalen mentality. That kid coming up who's 15, 16, 17 playing quarterback in Texas, he's got that Jalen mentality. He's got his own mentality. I'd say you got a rare breed. For real. All right, listen, that's going to do it for today's show. I greatly appreciate all you guys hanging out and kicking it with me. I felt strange. All right, I got to be transparent with you. I felt strange because we've been partying. We've been on 1,000. But for the first time, I'm starting to ask some questions because that's what you do now. It's time for a new year. It's time for a new purpose. It's time for a new goal. And I do wonder how this is going to go after winning the Super Bowl because it does change some things. So we'll see what happens. I love you guys. Appreciate you so much. And I'll talk to you all on the next one. Go Birds.